I'm Cindy Bokser, and you are listening to the Fiber Artist Podcast, where we chat with artists, makers, and creatives who work with fiber, get to know their stories, how they came upon their fiber practice, and more about the person behind the work. Well, hello there, my passionate and creative fiber art loving friends. It's December, and I do not know how this happened. We just had our first snowfall here in Northwest New Jersey, about 15 inches, no big deal. Well, the kids have had 3 snow days in a row. Apparently, half the town is still out of power, including the schools. I swear, if this goes on all winter, we're going to have to seriously consider moving south. I mean, enough is enough. So I guess that means people out in Texas, look out for us. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, my guest today is the incredible Jen Duffin of Nova Mercury. You might recognize her pieces by their bold, bright, and colorful quality. Her Instagram feed is a true visual treat, so make sure to give her a follow on Instagram at Nova Mercury. And real quick, if you're new around here, I've got a shop full of macrame and weaving fibers, our original cloud and oval looms, ethically sourced fair trade silk and chiffon ribbons. And if you're a maker who loves to work with fiber, check out niromastudio.com and get 15% off your next order with the code podcast. And for lots of inspo, follow me on Instagram at Niroma Studio. Okay, guys, I think that's it for now. Here is the wonderful and talented Jen Duffin. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? It's so nice to finally connect. We've been planning this for months, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Busy bees.
I know. What's been going on with you? Are you doing a lot of fiber work right now, or is it like family stuff? What's going on?
Oh, but always. It's like always a juggle.
Yeah.
Between it's November, so trying to get organized for the holidays.
Oh, for sure.
Work-wise. And I always feel like I'm behind no matter how much I plan ahead.
Yeah. What do you do? Are you doing markets right now, or what's going on?
I don't do markets.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah.
So like commission work.
Yeah, I'm finishing up some custom work and trying to just stock some stuff in my store too, so that there's things for people to buy if they would like.
Yeah. Actually, I noticed today, I was browsing through your Etsy today, and I was like, oh my God, she has so much good work up. And I'm surprised because I feel like you also have the kind of work that it gets snatched up pretty quickly. Like once you announce that you've posted it and stuff.
It does sometimes, for sure. It's I'm trying to stock up a bit right now so that I have stuff in the store, and fiber packs and stuff have been selling pretty quickly, but I have some. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, this is gonna come out probably at a good time. Well before the holidays, so that people can be reminded that you have these kinds of things in your shop.
Nice.
And,
that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've been really slacking with my interviews, and so I mean, as soon as this one's done and edited, we're getting it up as soon as possible. So.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You must be busy too.
I am. I mean, I'm honestly like a little stressed out right now because my store is like empty-ish right now, and it's the holidays, and I planned it so poorly this year with the production schedule of the rope and everything that like I've learned a lot in terms of when I need to be ordering and how long it's going to take, because it's now taking a lot longer than it used to. So because my orders are bigger.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so I'm expecting a shipment like tomorrow, but there's all this stuff happening in customs, and they don't have the document they're supposed to have. And like, I don't know. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on?
That's stressful.
It's super stressful, but whatever. I think everything's going to be out by the weekend. So.
It'll come through. You just have to trust it'll happen. Yeah,
totally. And it's one of those,
stressful.
It's totally, and it's one of those things that like, it'll stress me out for 2 weeks, even though what I have to arrange for it and everything is like, I really only need to be stressing like 48 hours in advance. But I'm like, it's the same thing. I do this with workshops too. Like when they're coming up, I stress myself out for 2 weeks, even though I have like a day of prep,
Right. But it's hard to, like, you must find that it's like you do all your planning and everything, but you you have kids and you have other things going on too. So it's like things always just take longer than you think they're going to. And every year I'm always like, I'm going to plan, I'm going to prepare, I'm prepared. And then just stuff happens and it never goes the way I hope. So you just kind of have to trust and hope that it happens and comes through. I'm sure it'll work out.
That's true. And yes, so speaking of kids, it's like, especially because it's the fall, they're all getting sick and all this unexpected, like being home with you when you thought you were going to be working and everything. You have, how many kids do you have?
2.
You've got 2. Both boys, or am I making that up?
No, I have an 8-year-old, Milo, and Nova is 4.
Okay. Oh, so, Nova.
Yeah.
Cute. Is that how you named the business?
Yeah. It's named after my youngest kid. It's funny because so many people think that it's my name. So when they message me or email, they're like, "Hi, Nova," blah blah blah. I'm like, "My name's Jen," but I know recently I've had a couple situations come up that have made me rethink maybe I should change my business name to just my name.
Yeah, I know that's always one of those things to consider, right? Like, I don't know. I love your business name though. I feel like and it's perfect. I feel like it's so perfect for your work because it's like start like it's kind of like celestial and everything, and I feel like your work totally resonates with that kind of idea.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. Yeah, it's my daughter's name is Nova Mercury.
Okay. Oh, and her middle name too. Oh my God, I love it.
That's her first name and her middle name. So she we always loved the name Nova, but then she was born during during the September harvest moon, but it was also a lunar eclipse.
Oh wow!
Like at the moment she was born. So Nova just fit because it's sort of it worked, and then Mercury fit too. So it was this kind of celestial name, but she's actually named after Freddie Mercury, who's one of my
so awesome
all-time favorite entertainers. So so that's who she's named for, but that's where the name comes from.
That is the best. Oh my God. And that your husband and partner is on board with that. That's amazing.
Yeah, totally. It's a little bit of an out there name, but we both really like it, and it totally suits her too. So.
It's amazing. Do you feel does her personality kind of go along with her name?
Yeah, totally. She's a little out there.
So funny. I have a friend who named her son, his middle name is Rebel. And she's like, "Oh fuck, I kind of regret naming him that because he's like to a T, like just constantly fighting her." Yeah. I was like, "Well, what did you expect?"
You've got to live up to it now. Seriously, yeah, totally. That's a great name, though.
I know. All right, so let's back up because I like to get into people's origin stories, and I'd love to just hear sort of like how you got into your fiber practice. What were you like as a kid? You're in Canada, right? You're in Montreal.
Yep.
Or just outside of? Are you right in the city?
I'm right in the city.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, but I did not grow up here.
Okay.
But we live in Montreal. Yes.
Okay, and where did you grow up?
Well, I will go way back. So my as a kid, well, my growing up story is a little unconventional. Maybe my dad was in the Air Force, so I'm a military brat. So I was born in Ontario, in Petawawa, Ontario, but I moved a lot. I moved like every 3 to 4 years. We moved to a different city. So I grew up all over Canada. I've lived in like lots of different provinces. I've lived in Europe for a few years. So my dad was stationed all over. So yeah. And then I moved to Montreal when I was in my early 20s. So I've lived here for like 18 years now, which is the longest I've lived anywhere. And it feels like home, but I didn't grow up here. But I didn't really grow up anywhere.
Exactly. I would think that it's hard to find to call any one place home when you've had to move around that much.
Yeah, no, I totally call Montreal home now. Like this feels like my home, and I've lived here for a long time, and we have a community here and everything. But yeah, so I grew up moving around a lot as a kid.
Was there a particular country or town that you really, really loved while you were there?
That's a good question.
Or hated?
I mean, living in Europe was a cool experience. I lived there when I was a teenager when I lived there. So it was a bit of, I would say it was like a double-edged sword because it was such a cool experience to live there, but I don't feel like I fully appreciated it either because of the age I was. Because I was like, obviously really concerned with like hanging out with my friends and stuff like that, and not so much as like enriching cultural experiences. But
right.
we lived
Where in
in
Europe?
Germany.
Oh,
We
sorry.
were on a military base in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, so I lived in Germany, but obviously when you're in Europe, it's so easy to travel because everything is close together.
Right.
So school trips every year were to a different destination, and I did a lot of traveling with my family. So that was, made quite an impression on me that I got to see a lot of Europe as a younger person, which was exciting, and do a lot of traveling at a young age.
And this is
That was probably my
Germany.
favorite place I lived.
Is this Germany in the 90s?
Early 90s. Yeah. It was like
Wow.
90 to 93.
Oh, wow. I feel like that was like a really, just a really important and sort of poignant time to be there, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we moved there the year after the Berlin Wall came down,
Okay, wow.
which was 89, I think. And we were also, my dad was stationed there during the Gulf War. So that was also going on at that time. But again, I was like, 12, 13, 14. So
were you just thinking about yourself?
Insightful.
Yeah, of course.
Totally. Just thinking about myself and my friends and my social life mostly. But there was definitely stuff going on at that time for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a cool experience though.
Yeah, definitely. So what were you at that time working creatively in a way? I mean, I know at this age you do get really, I don't know about you, but I definitely got caught up with friends, and I kind of let all that shit kind of go to the back burner.
Well, it's an interesting question because like I've always been a really creative and artistic person. Like even as a young child, art making was probably one of my favorite things to do. I obviously didn't weave or do fiber art, but I drew and painted constantly. And I always had at least one sketchbook on the go. So I was really into drawing growing up. I loved illustration. I loved comics. And even throughout high school, art class was always my favorite time. And I had always planned to try to apply to art school, like a post-secondary education. So it's always something I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that I did a lot of as a young person. And then I just, it's hard to say like in hindsight, but I definitely got caught up with some other things. And I think I got caught up with a lot of self-doubt around my worth as an artist. And I actually stopped making art completely after high school. I did nothing. Right. So it's a little strange because I as a kid I was just creating constantly. All I love to do is my favorite thing to do. But then I just stopped. Yeah.
I was the same, but it was more like, I think it was more, I don't think it was based in any kind of self-reflection or self-doubt. I think it was just like where my path led, because it was college and partying and then just finding a career and all that kind of stuff. And, art wasn't ever set out to me as a possibility to pursue, like as an adult,
Totally.
So when you were where did you finish out high school then? Were you back in Canada?
I was living in the suburbs of Ottawa.
Okay.
When I finished high school. Yeah. And then I moved out of my parents' house. And I was living like downtown Ottawa for a couple of years until I moved to Montreal. Okay. And same thing. I tried college. I didn't really end up pursuing anything. I think I stopped after a year, and then I just worked. I worked full time. Wow. So I was more into like living on my own, working jobs, experiencing life, hanging with my friends. That was the 20s.
That's so brave. I don't know. I feel like anybody who goes to school and then decides that they're not going to do it, it's so brave to set out, in my mind, because I feel like it's a safe space to be, to stay in college. And even if you don't think you're getting anything out of it or whatever, just to be there,
Yeah, totally. It for sure can be. For me, like going to school was never something that I loved. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it did feel like a safe space for me. I think I was just like, I'm going to try this adulting thing and get a job and get an apartment and just live my own life. I definitely wanted like my freedom and independence from my family at that age. That was something I was really focused on. Yeah.
Understandable. I definitely wanted out too. I was like,
Yeah. It's time to go.
Yeah. And please don't visit. Like every time they would visit, I would stress out. I'm like, oh God, not to hide stuff. And like, you know, I still feel that way, to be honest, but whatever. I'm like 40 years old and I'm like, ah, shit. I gotta. Yeah. Don't look in that drawer and don't look in that drawer. Anyway, so what were you doing for work at the time then?
Oh, I mostly worked customer service jobs for like a really long time, which is funny because I feel like it's a line of work that really doesn't get a lot of glory, you know?
Right.
Like it's often a job that people do when they're younger. But I worked in retail for a really long time, and I worked in as a manager for retail for a long time. But I actually feel like my experience doing that has informed my business so much at this point now that I'm self-employed, and it's been like incredibly useful.
I bet.
But yeah, so yeah.
What do you like? What kinds of things? Well, customer service. Hell yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm doing so much of that now, and you probably are too. But
sure.
Yeah, with the back and forth and everything, and wow, yeah.
I love it too. It's one of my favorite things is like connecting with people, and I miss that like real life interaction a lot too, because so much, I'm sure it's the same for you, like so much of our business is online and it's all virtual, so you're not actually really meeting with people face to face all the time, and I miss that. But I do really love connecting with clients. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, agreed. It's great, and I feel like it's also a double-edged sword in today's day and age now to do it, because I feel like it's a 24-hour cycle. So like, you know, so like, and I do it myself. I think I'm like, oh, would this business be open? Like, would they have a customer service line right now where I can just ask them a quick question? Because now the thing is I think that everybody's day winds down at like 9 p.m. And that's when we have time to think about the questions we need to ask whatever businesses or whatever things, you know what I mean? So then like,
yeah, totally.
I feel like I get the most requests like at the end, like after 8, you know, which
in the evening. Yeah, that's when people are thinking about it.
Exactly.
Totally.
Exactly. So it's,
that's like boundaries in work is like a whole other conversation. We can get into it if you want.
I think we should. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really try to maintain like some sort of old school boundaries with my work. And I think about my work as a work day, sort of a more conventional one. So I don't work in the evenings. I really try not to.
Yeah.
Or on weekends. So I try to keep my work in that sort of 9 to 5 schedule. For me, it's more like 7 to 3, but that's sort of my work hours.
With kids being in school and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm one of those people, if you message me at like 8 p.m., I won't answer.
Yeah. It's really good. You know what? I tried. I don't want to, but because it's like, if I've already checked the DM, then I'm not going to know that it's there the next day. It will be out of my mind. So if I don't answer right away, then I'll just forget about it. And then
you must get a lot. I feel like you must get a lot.
Well, lately they're just like, when are you restocking? When are you restocking? When are you restocking? Oh, no. They're not even like, so at least that's easy. I can literally like paste the answer, cut and paste the answer. But, but yeah, no, but when it is, I mean, I do, I want to answer all of those questions too. But yeah, I just find that I'll forget about the email if I don't answer it right away, which is horrible. Like I really need to figure out a better system, but yeah, that's me. That's good though that you have these boundaries. I mean,
yeah, I try, and it's not like, and I don't say that in any way to be like judgmental of how anyone decides to do things. It's just for me to feel like, otherwise I'm just either like working all the time or kind of caring for my kids and doing family time all the time. And I find that really trying to compartmentalize my life in these ways just creates more space for me to have a personal life and just a bit more. I don't even like to use the word balance because I don't totally feel like it exists.
No, it does not. It does not.
At least just more of a flow. Like my my kids, one of my oldest is in school, and then my youngest is in daycare during the day. So I have the daytime by myself and at home to work. I work from home. So I work all day while they're out of the house. So I'm either making orders, or I'm packing and shipping, or I'm ordering supplies, like whatever I'm doing in a day. But then when my kids come home, I don't like to be on my phone or my computer around them. I don't mind if they see me making, because I think that's nice for them to see, my actual fiber work, and it's interesting for them, and they always want to see what I'm doing and touch the pieces, and they both have like mini looms and love to get into the yarn and stuff too with me. Great. So that's really nice, but I don't like to feel I guess distracted by that when I'm with them. Yeah. But so it's nice to try to create these little boundaries between a work day and my home life. Otherwise, I'm at home and I feel like I would just think about work all the time if I let myself.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is. It's like a sanity tool.
Because you're the same too, right? You also work from home and everything. Yeah, so you're not you don't have any physical boundaries to remove yourself from work, and it can really, really take over. And with email, Instagram, people can get a hold of you all the time. It's a lot.
It is. It's true. I mean, I think even this podcast is one of those things where, like, because my work is now so solitary and it's at home. I mean, I could literally go weeks without leaving my house if I had to, other than like pick up my kids or take them to wherever they need to go. Or I could go weeks without having an adult conversation, like with someone other than my husband. And even those conversations are so not, it's like about the kids or, logistics or whatever.
Yeah, I totally understand, for sure. Yeah. So you need to create that time, carve out that time for yourself to be leaving your house and talking to people. For
sure. Yeah. Okay, wait. So let's go back. We have you, you were working like in your 20s, I assume, like your early 20s. And then how did you eventually come to your fiber art?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I did a lot of other things in the meantime too. I feel like I'm somebody who's sort of, I tend to change gears every couple years, whatever I'm doing. I have had many different careers and jobs and vocations. But the last kind of job I had before I started making fiber art, I was working for a music management and production company. I was actually grant writing mostly for touring musicians and artists. Wow. And my partner works in the music industry too, so we were both sort of tied to that here in Montreal. And then I got pregnant with Nova, so my second kid, and I was on maternity leave, and I just had like a lot of different things come up for me. So one was the fact that in my partner's line of work, he travels a lot for work. He's a tour manager, so he's away a lot. And we were having a second child, so that was 2 kids instead of 1. And I also have fibromyalgia, and I have some other autoimmune stuff going on. So I live with like chronic pain and fatigue. Wow. So parenting 2 kids alone a lot of the time while trying to manage work for me was starting to feel pretty impossible. Mm-hmm. Just prior to Nova being born, I had started working from home for my job, but just working remotely because it was just easier for me than going to an office every day. So while I was on maternity leave, I had honestly just wanted some macrame plant hangers for my house. I had really gotten into houseplant collecting and was just looking for some functional pieces. And at the time, macrame was kind of not that easy to find, which is strange because now it's really everywhere you look. It's quite amazing how it's changed in just a few years. But so I decided just to try to make some. And again, like I said, at this time, I was really not creative or crafty or making stuff all the time, but I was like, I can do this. So I got some rope and I took a class on, it was on the Creative Bug platform, and it was taught by Emily Katz, who I had no idea who she was at the time. She had these online classes and she had a plant hanger class. And so I did this online class and it was so much fun. And I just made all these plant hangers for my house. And I was like, awesome. This is great. But then I really enjoyed the experience of making macrame, and I'd never made fiber art before. So then I went back, and she had another class on how to do a simple wall hanging. So then I did that class online too. And it was just, I don't know what it was, Cindy. It was like, I hadn't made any art really in like so long, and it just like flipped the switch in my brain.
Yeah.
And I loved the mindfulness of the knot tying and learning the techniques. And there was just something about it that was just really attracted me to it. And I just kept making stuff, but I was really just making it for myself. And then like friends started asking about what I was making. And I also had a friend who owned a small business that's now closed, but this great little local shop. And I brought some plant hangers to her, and I was like, do you think I could try selling these kind of like on consignment in your store? Do you think this would work? And then I really just decided to make a go of it. And I was like, I'm going to open an Etsy shop and try kind of doing this on the side and see how it goes. And
Yay, I love it. So were you still pregnant at the time, or you're on maternity leave?
I was on maternity leave. So in Canada, we are really lucky and we get a whole year maternity leave. So I mean, you're obviously busy.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, seriously, it's really amazing that we have this time. So I had this time to sort of explore this while I was at home with my baby. And that's sort of how I got into it. So starting my business was sort of born out of this like necessity for me to find something different, a way for me to like be employed and sustain myself and my family, but something I could do from home while I could still be with my kids and manage my health.
Right. And the fulfillment, right? Like that spark of, it's literally like a spark of joy the minute you finish your first piece and you step back, especially after a long time of not creating, right? This was the same exact thing for me too. And it was like when the kids were young, and it's like this palpable thing where you're like, holy shit, like I just made something, you know? And I don't know. It for me was the same way, you know?
No, and it really was. It was like, I always describe it as like this switch in my brain that I had somehow turned off just got turned on again. Yeah. And then it was like, because I remember when I was younger too, like this, like drawing for me, it was like a need to draw. Like I felt this drive to constantly sort of create and produce and make art. It was something I wanted to do all the time. And when I started making macrame, that it was that same feeling that I was like, hey, I want to keep doing this. I want to make something else. I want to learn more. And I just couldn't.
And you're thinking about it all the time, right? Like
I couldn't stop
laying there
as you're trying to obsessed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was totally obsessive. I was painting at the same time too on the side. I got into painting a bit, and I was actually painting pet portraits on commission too.
That's so awesome.
And then I got too busy with both, and then I had to choose one or the other. And then I chose fiber art, and that's just what I've stuck with. But it's like really any sort of creating is attractive to me now. And I'm so glad that I've rekindled that in my life, because it's been so satisfying. And
absolutely. Yeah. So then when did the macrame, when did you start sort of transitioning over to weaving, and how did you learn how to weave?
Oh, so that's a great question, because it's funny now when I think about it, but at the time it just seemed like a natural transition, or like a next step. It was like, okay, I'd been doing macrame for probably about 6 months.
Okay.
At that point. So I'd been making plant hangers, been making wall hangings. And I think it was probably because I had tried incorporating some weaving with my macrame. And then I was like, oh, I would actually really like to learn to weave on a loom, to do loom weaving. And it was just sort of the same thing where I was like, I'll just go on Etsy and order a loom. And I did. And the loom was from Oak and Ash.
Mm-hmm. I had that loom. Yeah, I would order those looms actually for workshops. Because they break down with the just like the poles, right? Like the poles on the sides.
Yeah.
Yep.
Made in Minnesota, and I think her shop is in I want to say she's in North Carolina maybe, but
I mean, I don't remember.
Yeah, I just ordered a weaving kit from her, and I also did an online class. I think it was also on Creative Bug, just that like platform, and I just learned a couple of basic stitches, and then I just kept going. And my weaving, it was similar to the macrame, where I just sort of did like one introductory class, and then my learning was a lot of practice. So I did it every day, and I'm not exaggerating. It was every day. Like I made macrame every day. Once I learned to weave, I think I've been weaving every day since I started. It's a lot of practice.
It's so funny because we've had like a parallel journey, yet slightly opposite, because I started with weaving and then 6 months later I switched to macrame.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah. I really want to get back into weaving though, because I don't know, like I keep saying it in my head, and it's like one of those things where you're always like, oh, this is what I'm going to do next. Like I want to build a giant loom and just make one big weaving that like over the year I'll just like add to when I have a chance. But it's hasn't happened.
With all your free time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know how it is.
So why did you switch to macrame?
Because I realized that I always wanted to do large scale pieces, and I could do those quicker than I could weave. Like weaving took forever to me. It was always something that just took longer. And with macrame, I can do a 5 to 6 foot wide piece in maybe like 15 hours. But if I did a weaving that big, I mean, we're talking months for me, just because I'm a slow weaver. But
the process is different. Yeah, and it is different for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
I know, right? Okay, wait. So your aesthetic is like really recognizable. So many colors, like full spectrum rainbows. Did you find that, like, was that your sort of perspective and voice from the very beginning, or was it something like it clicked one day, or how did that sort of develop?
Well, that's a great question. I've actually thought about this because I think there's a couple things. So, when I started making, because macrame, at least when I started, it was very neutral. So even like trying to find colored rope, it wasn't really on the market yet. So if you wanted to use colors, you would have to like dye your own rope or create that. And what I was seeing like out there in the world was very neutral too, right? Because you're mostly just working with your natural materials. So if it's like cotton, it's raw cotton, and it's just neutral, which is great because then you can make anything with it. It can go anywhere. So I was making probably a lot of more neutral pieces. And then part of the reason I wanted to start incorporating weaving into my macrame is because I wanted to work with color, and it seemed like an easy way to bring that in. So I think at the time, the only person that I'm sure there were other people, I just don't remember. I remember, I believe her name is Sarah from the Forest Fern she was incorporating some weaving, and I was like, that's really cool. And then I had been playing around with roving, and so I tried my own take on it, and it totally just resonated with me, and I really loved the approach. And then I had a client commission a piece for me, but it's a friend of mine, and she's a color lover, and she wanted a rainbow piece. So it was a rainbow macrame wall hanging, and it was pretty big, and it was the first time I ever made it. And she was just like, can you do like lots of colors, but like what you do, but just rainbow colors? And I was like, okay, great. And I was really, really excited about the project and to try it. So that was the first piece I did that was rainbow. And I know when I shared it to social media, it got such a big reaction compared to anything I had ever shared before. So, and again, like it's funny to think about now because rainbows are so trendy right now, and they're everywhere. But at the time, they weren't everywhere. And even just my friend asking for this piece, like it felt a little unconventional to do it. But yeah, it just resonated with other people, and I really had so much fun making it. And then when I think about it more, you know, like as a kid, I was always really attracted to color, and you know, my favorite toys were like My Little Pony, so everything was like rainbow colored, and I was super into Lisa Frank and all of that stuff. So I don't, even though like it's not how I express myself personally, I think my artistic aesthetic has always been super colorful, and I've it's what I'm the most inspired by most of the time is color. So
yeah, definitely.
yeah, but I like doing everything. I don't like to feel like I have only one style. Like something I
Right.
love about doing this is like experimenting and trying new things. And I always want to learn new techniques, and I always have ideas for different things, but I always love making rainbow pieces too. They're really fun to make. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
And they
they
definitely
make
make,
people happy.
they do. They make people happy.
Yeah.
There's no way to look at
Yeah.
one and be like, "Ugh, I don't like that."
Yeah.
Like it's like, no, this is amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, and actually with your other, with the palettes that you put together that are not just like full spectrum, they're so lovely. Do you feel like do you just kind of go by instinct and what makes your soul and your eyes happy when you're putting colors together? Or do you have like a color theory kind of idea in the back of your head?
No, I have no color theory in the back of my head ever. I wish I did. I actually keep thinking I should learn about color theory, so I actually have some knowledge to go with it. Something I do is I always have a lot of materials on hand, which is nice because then it allows me to explore color combinations. So often I'll actually just physically pick and choose colors and put them together on a table. And it's like a feeling for me, or, until I'm happy with what I see. I also find a lot of inspiration from nature and just like the world, natural world. If I look at a lot of like nature photography online too, I find like there's just such stunning color combinations in nature, which you can then replicate with. So I like to do that a lot as well. And another big color inspiration for me is illustration. So looking at illustrated work, I love children's illustration, love it. I'm super obsessed. So I actually love looking at like kids' books for color palette inspirations.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, there's really, really wonderful ones. And like children's literature right now is it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's just the greatest.
Really good. So, yeah. I don't know how I have been doing. I've been like, I read to my kids every night, and it has not occurred to me to look.
Okay, so now
I mean, as far as color, like I'll admire I'll admire the illustrations and be like, wow, like this is really beautiful or wonderful. But then I don't know, I've never thought about it in terms of color palette. That's actually an amazing idea.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's just, I don't know. I'm always struck sometimes by paintings or photography, and I'll like pick and choose colors from there. But yeah, a lot of it for me is really just a feeling, and I love putting color combinations together. I find it like endlessly inspiring and really fun. Yeah.
It's so funny because I keep playing around with my art yarn, like putting together weaving packs, and I'll just do it because number one, it makes me feel productive. Like if I don't have any orders or something to fulfill, I'm like, oh, I have to do some work. Okay, I'll put together new weaving packs. But like it's really fun just to be like, well, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? And I have there's so many listed that like don't sell, but I'm just like, oh, this is like I'll endlessly do it. And then
well, that's it. It's like infinite, right? You could go on forever.
It's so fun. It really is.
It'll speak to someone. Like one day it'll sell, and it'll be the right combination. And some people are like, I get a lot of feedback from clients that because I do fiber packs too on my site, but for this reason, that some people really struggle with trying to choose colors, or I think it can feel intimidating sometimes.
Yes.
To know what to pick, even though I think you totally can't go wrong. I'm just like, do whatever feels good to you. You should do it. But it's a really fun thing to pick colors. And I love when I teach workshops too, because I often just put a whole bunch of yarn on the table, and I let folks pick their own colors as opposed to coming up with like pre-made packs for them. So because it's a big part of being creative too, is like choosing your materials and choosing your palette to work in. So I always love seeing what other people are going to do too. It's really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I also it just reminds me, like, I think in my process of even putting together the yarn packs is like, so often I'll find some colors that I think look really good together that I never would have thought of before. But I have that, like, the luxury of being able to have like so many in front of me to just be like, oh, this or this or this, which I don't think everybody has that luxury always. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's really nice to be able to
it's like having the materials in front of you can really help a lot for sure. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, but I don't know, folks. try looking at kids' books.
Totally. Just open your eyes. So let's talk about workshops. Are you teaching any? Do you have any upcoming?
I don't. I'm actually done for the year.
Okay.
I'm taking a little bit of a break. This year has been hectic. We've just family life, and it's been busy. And teaching on the weekends sometimes is hectic. It's a lot. I didn't do that many this fall. I was really, really lucky that I got to go to Toronto, and I taught 2 workshops in Toronto this fall at Boku. Shout out to Aruna, who invited me to come to her beautiful shop and teach 2 classes there.
Awesome.
Oh, it was really great. I'm so lucky that I got to do that, and she's inspired me for a really long time.
Yes. Agreed.
Like 10 years before I was even making fiber art. I was buying bags from her. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping maybe that we might be able to swing that again next year in the spring or the summer. I'll go back to Toronto and teach, and I'll do a couple more in the city. I'm sure I'm actually looking for new locations here in Montreal. So, but I'll be sure to announce on my Instagram when I have some coming up. I really love teaching. It's like the only time I see people face to face.
Same here.
It's like
Same
so
here.
necessary.
It's so funny because, like I had mentioned, I do get nervous before them. But then every time as I'm leaving, I'm like, that was so fun. Like, why don't I organize more of these more often? But then in the planning process, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I have to motivate myself to do it. I don't know.
Do you teach wall hangings or hangers?
I do wall hangings.
Wall hangings?
Yeah, mostly just beginner wall hangings, but I've had a couple requests now to do a second session, advanced beginner or something where we do layers, or something like that. So yeah, I'll probably do some early next year, but yeah, it's just a funny thing because I'm always nervous beforehand and like for weeks beforehand, and then always right after I'm like, that was amazing, and I have 10 new friends.
Yeah, no, they're really fun. I love doing them too.
Yeah.
I don't get so nervous. It's more just the time to finding the time to do it. And like I said, my partner is away a lot too. So
yeah, that's really hard.
Finding time in our schedules to do things is tricky sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're putting it out there.
Yeah.
Another location in Montreal for anyone who wants to host a weaving workshop. So you're doing weaving workshops, any macrame?
No, I stopped doing macrame this year.
Okay.
I made the decision to stop making macrame pretty much. I will still do large scale commissions for wall hangings because I love doing them. Yeah. But I really only like doing big things.
Yeah.
I love making big art. Are you the same?
Know. I'm the same way. That's why I
just made all these little minis for my shop, and I'm like, no, I just want to make giant things all the time.
Because I feel like there's so much more freedom in terms of when you have a huge canvas, there's so much more freedom within that space to go crazy. Whereas with the little ones, you're I remember I did 2 markets in my whole making career, and they were both kind of duds because I don't think I provided the correct things. But I mean, I learned a lot, obviously, in my failure. But it's because I don't know. I'm not good at making small things, and I don't think I make them look great. And then it's because they have to sort of be impulse buy things, if you're going to do markets.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think I'm the same. And I love going to markets, for my holiday shopping. Same. I will buy handmade and local as much as possible. I adore them. But for me and my own style and what I do, I don't like making little things. I really like making large scale pieces. Yeah. Yeah. So for the macrame, I decided to stop. But if anybody wants a large scale wall hanging, I love making them. They're a lot of fun. Yeah. And I still love making macrame. The weaving side is really where my heart is. I feel like weaving it just speaks to me in a way that nothing else has. And it's really my medium, at least right now. But it's been a 3-year love affair, and I'm pretty into it. So
it's it's in there, it's for sure.
Oh yeah, I love it.
It's not a fling.
No, not a fling. We're in it for the long haul. So that's really what I wanted to focus on. And it's not that I was too busy. It's just I find that it's pretty easy to business wise to kind of spread yourself thin. And like this year, I found myself being spread pretty thin. And I think I was trying to do too many things. And I've been trying to make space to do a lot of like reflecting on what I actually want to be doing and what I want to be putting out into the world. I'm trying to be intentional all the time and having more intentionality to what I'm doing. So I decided to sort of scale back and focus on weaving, but instead I'm selling weaving supplies now. So I have a loom and I have fiber packs, and I really like curating those. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun to put together for people, and then it's really fun to see what people make with them. So also being able to inspire other people to tap into their own creativity has been like super rewarding for me. I really love that aspect of it. So that's something I would like to do more of. I've just got to figure out how to do it.
More of the inspiring others.
Like more teaching. I get asked all the time if I will ever have an online class, and it's something I would really love to do.
I was going to ask you. So like when you think about your business, because like or even just the parts of your practice that you want to devote more time to, like, you know, I've been thinking about it for a while, and like the loom is one thing, and then like making more videos is another thing for me. When you think about yours, like things that that are constantly in your mind that you're gonna get to, that you're having trouble getting to, like what are those things for you?
Okay, well, the first one is hilarious, but I have to say it because it's so real. It's a website. I've been trying to do this for like 2 years. I do not have a website, and I feel like this is something I need to make happen. So this is a priority. And then when I have a website, I'll be able to host an online class. So that's also a priority to try and do that, because I have an ebook right now, but it's pretty basic, and I know for myself I don't learn very well from a book. Like I'm very much a visual learner, so I love learning from people in person. Like I think if you want to learn a workshop, by far is the best way to go if you can take one. But I think online classes are great, and I know there's so many great ones out there already too, which is why I've hesitated to even make one, because I'm often just sending people to where there already are, because there's so many great online classes. But I do get asked,
but there's not going to be. It's your particular skill set and way of interpreting and explaining and inspiring, like the way that you'll talk about it. You know what I mean? It's so individual to you that, I mean, do it. You have to do it.
I get asked enough that I feel like I should. So that's something I'd really like to do. And then, I would love to explore more opportunities like around teaching. I would love to travel more to teach if I could make that work. And I would also love to do more large scale work. I would love to snag commissions and like a hotel or some big like corporate commissions. So I need to start maybe researching ways to try to make that happen, or put myself out there a little bit more beyond like the sphere of Etsy and Instagram, which are kind of the two little bubbles that I exist in right now. But
well, I think you just made your first step. So you just put out into the universe that I am big on like literally when you verbalize something and you vocalize a certain goal, like I just feel like there's more energy behind it to make it actually happen. So there you go. Hotel commissions, large scale weaving commissions. I
just want to make big things.
Yeah, man, I feel you. Like, and then and the like the end result of it when you get to look at when you're making like the giant stuff. I mean, there's just I don't know. For me, I feel like there's like no better feeling. It's like being finished with a piece like that.
You feel it's very like a very accomplished.
Yes.
It's exciting. And I love it. I just love making big pieces.
You know how they say like do it for the process. Do you find that you do it more for the process or for the result?
Oh, that is such a good question. I will say, like, I want to say both, but I want to say that maybe I'm a bit results driven. Mandy Smethels posted something on her Instagram this week that it was funny and it made me laugh because she posted something about when she starts a project, she kind of needs to sit down and power through it. Otherwise, she's worried that she won't finish it. Mandy, I'm paraphrasing. I hope I got that right. But something to that effect. And it just resonated with me because I feel the same way. Like often when I'm feeling inspired, I just feel this really like innate drive to get the idea out of my head onto the loom and finished. And often when I start making, like people will sometimes comment on my level of productivity, and I'm a fast weaver, but it's because when I sit down to work, I just do it, and I will weave for like 8 hours straight very quickly to finish a piece. But I don't spend a lot of time planning, or like I don't sketch my weavings before anything. No, it's like all in my head, but it's like this, it's getting it out. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah. And then I would imagine you probably don't have a lot of like half finished work. Like, because for me, it's like if that momentum dies, it's dead. Like I have one piece. It's literally been on the loom, I think, for 4 years. Why have I not cut it off? I have no idea. But but it was like because I got stuck right there, and I kept thinking I'd come back to it, but I'm never going back to it. It's like the things that I'm gonna do, I do it like within like a marathon amount of time, and then it's done and it's out.
That makes sense to me. I think I have a very similar process. So it's inspiration will hit, and I'll have an idea, but then I'll need to make it like right away.
Yeah.
And I always try to give myself space too, because I always have custom orders on the go. I usually have at least like a couple on the go at a time, but I always try to give myself breaks in between custom pieces to just do creative pieces, because my custom work is often making rainbows or made to order pieces. So it feels, they're still super creative, but it feels more like production work. So I'm making the same design over and over again.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. Do you find that, I was going to say, do you find most of your custom work to be slightly repetitive or remakes of things you've already made? Or do you have a lot of clients who will just be like, you know what, I just really like what you do, so feel free, here are the sizes?
It's a bit of both. Like I have made to order listings in my shop. So for the rainbow weavings, I have them in a couple different sizes, and I only make them to order. So people can go in, buy one. So there's always a couple of those on the go. I sell them all the time. So, and they're still creative in the sense that they're all a little bit different because it's handmade, right?
Sure,
so they're never the same. And then I will also sometimes get a connection with a client around the story about why they're buying one, which will be inspiring on its own. Right. So there's that. But it's not often that I have a client who will ask me to do a custom piece for them that's totally original or something that I haven't made before. I think I've done 2 this year that were really a bit out of the box, that were so much fun.
Yeah.
And the ideas came from my clients, which I love collaborating with people. So for example, someone chose the size of one of my made to order pieces, but then she was like, well, we live by the ocean, and instead of doing rainbow, could we do this in blues? And instead of hanging it on a dowel, could we do driftwood? And I was like, no problem. And then as I started working on it, I tweaked the design more, because just intuitively I was like, oh, it could be more like waves and to have a more organic feel. So the client and I sort of had this back and forth. And then the finished weaving was just, it turned out so beautifully. And I was so happy with it, and she was so happy with it. And it was just, it's like magical when that happens. And this is a person I've never met. We've just communicated over email, but it just clicked.
And you know, it's going to be like so special for her forever. So it's the best feeling.
I hope so. Yeah. I had a really nice communication with her, and I did another piece for a client earlier this year that was the sort of a landscape piece. It was like rolling green hills with a blue sky with flowers. And she was also inspired by her parents' home in Vermont, which is where she wanted to hang the piece. And so I'd never made anything like that before, but she was like, I love your style. Do you think you could do this? And when I shared pictures of it, it was probably one of my most liked and shared pieces ever on social media. Awesome. Yeah, it was really just, but it was the client's idea. So I'm like, as an artist, I'm super open to interpreting other people's ideas as long as I can do it in my own style and my own voice. So
yeah, those are the best.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen very often for me anyways, but I love it. So yeah, don't be shy to send me
yeah. I'm like thinking right now I'm like, if I could find, like, think of a certain, I don't know, I have this thing in my head I might share with you later, because I love your work. I would love to commission you for something soon. So
well, anytime.
Yeah, awesome.
Come up with a crazy idea, we can do it.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you offline about that. But let's talk about your future website. Where are you stuck?
Well, okay. I don't even want to say it's time management, because I pride myself on my time management skills, but it's a question of priority, I think, for me. So it's always something that slips down in urgency with things I need to do. But the longer I do this, the more I don't want to move away from the like handmade, like maker community, because it's a wonderful community that's been, so good to me, and I love it. But I just feel like I may be growing in what I want to do, and I maybe want to be taken a little seriously and see myself as an artist. And I think I should have, a proper website.
Oh, no, I totally agree. Actually, I was surprised when I went to go research the, like the nuts and bolts of where we can find you and all that kind of stuff today. I was like, wait a minute. Etsy, no, which is great. Etsy's amazing. I'm not even it's amazing. And I started on it too, and all that stuff. But I have to say I was surprised that I didn't see a novamercury.com.
No, I'm just on Etsy, and I just have Instagram. I'm not using any other social media. So
have you registered the domain?
I haven't.
Girlfriend.
I need to do that. Okay, Cindy, you're my new business manager.
Everybody tell Jen she needs a website. Okay, so just to put it in perspective, it's going to take you 5 minutes. It's going to take you 2 minutes to register your domain. And then it's going to take you 5 minutes to either get your Square website or your Shopify website or whatever you're going to use. But I don't know, or Squarespace. That's what I was thinking. Squarespace, which I would recommend.
What do you use? Use Squarespace?
I use Shopify. Well, I use Shopify, but it was only because I started on Squarespace, and they, hands down, like, it's the most beautiful templates. Really good for showing art. But at the time, the e-commerce portion of it wasn't as developed, but now I think it is. Like, I think that they've really made it pretty turnkey too with e-commerce. So I don't know. I would probably do that unless you think, I think the one benefit for Shopify for me was realizing that my volume was so big that they had just had better shipping deals. So it was like, if you're willing to pay a certain amount per month, which is pretty high, then their shipping deals are going to be better. So yeah. So I don't know. That's something to research, but I don't know, man. I'll just say that it's not as daunting a task that you might be considering, because honestly, you're going to need like 5 images to just get it out there and put it out there. Yeah. And then like one boilerplate about me, which is probably somewhere on your Etsy. So it's a lot of cutting and pasting, and then like even just to have like 5 images up there to be a placeholder, and then slowly everything, and then after that happens slowly, and you don't even have to rush, But
no, you're totally right. And I'm going to go register the domain. And I'm going to send you a screenshot to say I did it. You can be my accountability buddy.
My job here is done.
You're my new business manager. I also really, fun fact about me, I really dislike doing like tech stuff. I don't enjoy it at all. So anything that requires me to like sit at a computer and do work, I will procrastinate. I do not enjoy it. So that,
well, then in that case,
I think it's also a barrier for me.
No, I get that. I totally get that. And that actually gives me a lot of insight. And I then definitely recommend Squarespace. Theirs is way more plug and play than Shopify.
Yeah, and I did. I
Like,
looked at their templates, and they're so beautiful.
yeah, and
And
like
I've
you could
had it
literally
recommended by
drag.
lots.
Yeah, and you like literally just drag stuff in, and it's so easy with Shopify. Like when you have to figure out all these like weird logistical things, it's kind of annoying. Um, not to talk down on Shopify, I really love you guys, but
I'm just comparing.
yeah. When
Yeah.
if you want to like not have to program, then I would say go Squarespace. They just make it
Oh,
really
that's so good
easy.
to know.
Yeah, they make it easy and
Thank you.
it's beautiful, and I feel like your work will look awesome on a
I
Squarespace
know
site.
it really will. I need to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's happening. I know I had like some cool opportunities come up this week too, and I was like, why don't I have a website? I need a website.
Yeah.
So it's just like reminding me that I need to get it done. I need to prioritize it. So
yeah, you'll do it. I know you'll do it.
Yeah.
Or you could. I'm trying to think. So does your Instagram leads right to your Etsy link?
I have a link in my
or do you have a link?
Instagram Etsy shop. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, or if you have a link tree, and then you could. Well, whatever. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I know there's lots of ways to do it, and it's like it's tricky too because I think Etsy when I started out was so great because it's there
where you
for
go
you.
For it. Yeah,
you just plug your things in, and it's very user friendly, and they have a lot of support for people when you're starting out. And then it was also like a lot of my traffic was being driven by Etsy to my shop.
Yes,
and now I'm finding if I look at my traffic stats, I'm driving my own traffic for the most part at this point. So I'm like,
well, I think
I'm
that's
not saying I'm going to leave
that's
Etsy,
telling.
but yeah, I do need to have my own space. And it's not good to put all your eggs in one basket. You need to have different outlets and stuff. So yeah.
Yep. I still have a presence on Etsy. I think, but then it's like whatever I think that's a huge marker is when you find and you notice that you're driving your own, like you're getting your own audience for the most part, then that's absolutely like a sign that you're ready to go off on your own.
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. And it's a branding thing too. So like, to be like, to elevate yourself in a certain way and also put yourself at a price point, I think that you're taken into consideration more as an artist versus an artisan crafter.
Yeah.
Then, to have that kind of presence and the website presence is necessary. Although I would say totally Marianne Moody, she uses her Etsy link like more than her website link. Funny, huh?
Oh, does she?
Yeah, like for her workshops, you like register from her Etsy. So I thought that was very interesting.
Might just be like a logistical thing too, where sometimes it's easier to just set that up and because Etsy is so easy to use. This is why I'm still there.
I know.
It's so easy.
I know. Like from your phone, you can upload everything to your phone. Your listings are just like no brainers. I know. I agree.
Totally.
And they do a lot of marketing, I have to say, like on your behalf, and a lot of I mean, as far as handmade, there's nothing equivalent to how good Etsy is. I think there's a lot of discussion about how they were this year with like pushing the free shipping and doing all this stuff that was annoying a lot of people, but they're still like the number one handmade marketplace. There's no other,
Yeah, they're making some decisions that are definitely controversial, I think, with their people who use their service, for sure. Yeah. I've had a lot of discussions with people behind the scenes about Etsy this year, about some of that. And then I've also had some really great experiences. Like they did their design awards for the first time. And I was like,
oh my God, I noticed that. It was so amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
All the time. Thank you. It was really fun. It was just cool to have like recognition and
like being verified, like Etsy verified in a way.
Yeah, and there were so many people from Montreal who made it into the finals too, which makes sense because it's a very creative city, but it was just cool to see how many people from Montreal were represented, and that's
awesome.
It was fun. I've made a few connections with other people, other makers I didn't know, so it was fun for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Wait, so did they have like an in-person anything for it, like a reception or anything like that, or was it?
They did, but just for the winners, I think. So it was the first year they've done it. So they said that they've got like tens of thousands of applicants, and then they narrowed it down to finalists in like 5 different categories, I think. And then there was one winner from each category, and then one overall winner.
Oh, okay.
So the person who won, oh, I don't remember her name. It's like it's this interactive wallpaper. It's so cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
really
really cool.
really innovative and really original. So yeah, but it was so neat to see because Etsy is there's just so many talented people on it. So it
Yeah.
was just amazing to see all the pieces that were selected, and then the fact that I was chosen as a finalist was super flattering because
Yeah, it's so awesome. And they really do honestly like their I feel like their selection and their whoever the jury board or whatever. Like I feel like they were really they have a really good eye. Actually my one of my best friends, Amanda from Dye Queen. Do you follow her? She does like
yeah,
botanical dyeing.
yeah,
We used to work together forever and in the more corporate world or whatever. But yeah, she was one of the finalists for her botanical dye work. So yeah, I
that's so
felt like
cool.
they really have a discerning eye, is what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah, and their collections are nicely curated for
yeah,
sure. So yeah, that was
definitely.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
Etsy.
you are. I guess we're over an hour now. But what do I want to ask you? So it's November now. We're almost at the end of the year. When you look back, you might have already answered this. Anyway, I'll let you answer. When you
Okay.
look back at like this year and the work you've done, what do you feel you are most proud of? And conversely,
Oh
where do
wow.
you find you could have done better?
Hmm. Those are good questions.
And it doesn't have to be like your work. It can be like your process or something you'd like to change about your process or
Yeah,
that kind of
no,
thing.
totally. I mean, this year I did kind of just answer it, but like this year I had some really cool I like I'm so grateful that I get to do this. I sometimes feel like maybe it's a finite thing. I don't know how long I'll be able to do this for. So every
Yeah.
moment that I get to do it, I'm very grateful. For me, it's
Do you
also
mean like because of like health reasons or trends in interior?
it like health reasons, trends, um, the fall of capitalism.
I
Who
know.
knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So the world is a really wild place right now.
Yeah.
So um, the fact that I get to, I'm not just, and I mean it like not just making art to make art, but which I think we can always do, right? There's always a place for art, and art is very important. But just that I get to make a living doing this too,
Yeah. Yeah.
always so grateful for. And yeah, and I just got, I think, some recognition this year that was really cool for me because so much of what I do is working like, in my home studio by myself all
Yeah.
day. And it's a bit of a vacuum or a bit of an echo chamber. So you really have to have a lot of faith in yourself and what you're doing and to be putting yourself out there all the time. But the Etsy Awards were just a really cool opportunity.
Yeah. And
I was
huge.
also yeah, it was really special, and it that felt really good. And I was just this week featured in a holiday campaign for an art store chain here
Oh,
called
cool.
Omar Dessert.
Oh, that's so
So I'm like
cool.
a featured artist in their campaign. So it's like it's national and it's a media campaign. So it's all
That's
in their social media,
awesome.
all the stuff. So they asked me to be a part of it, and I'm featured with other artists from Montreal. So
That's
that
so
was
cool.
also just really cool recognition outside of my little bubble, because sometimes I
Yeah.
really just feel like it's just me on my own in my head doing this. And
Yeah.
so that was exciting. Ways that I feel like I could do better, or like things I'd like to strive towards in the future. I made that comment about really being intentional about what I'm doing. So that's something I'm trying to kind of focus on, spend some time thinking about really what my intent is as an artist, as a maker, as somebody who's, putting a product out into the world. I want to be really mindful of what I'm putting out into the world in terms of not only like my art and artistic process, but also just in terms of stuff and
Hmm.
waste. And that's on my mind a lot. So I'm trying to sort of
Yeah.
minimize the amount that I am putting out what's necessary, sort of refine what I'm doing. So I think that's something that's I'm going to carry into next year and continue thinking about. And I think it will
Yeah.
also help me to have better sort of balance and flow in my work, where I'm maybe not feeling so scattered all the time, trying to keep up with everything and just having more purpose and intentionality. So that's something I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I know. I am thinking about that as well. The waste idea and the sustainability of this kind of creating. And it's like, I feel like I just get myself into a hole when I think about it. And it feels slightly discouraging.
So can I ask you?
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone knows better than I do, like the pounds of cotton that arrive to my house and then go out. And I have to think about like what that means in terms of, I mean, but there's so much to think about. Is that like, are the people who are farming it getting paid enough? And are the people who are, there's a whole line of production and agriculture and where this all of it. And it feels very overwhelming to think about, because I'm like, oh, I'm here just a small business trying to like do best for my family and etc. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard because, and then I've thought about like, recycled fibers and things like that. So I have some of that, but there and organic and things of that nature. But then there are so many things as in the way that things are produced now that would make, like, for example, organic cotton is so expensive. It wouldn't be sustainable. I mean, it wouldn't be realistic it wouldn't be viable for me to have a business with organic cotton, first of all,
I understand what you're saying.
Because you have to keep prices down and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just something that's like in the back of my mind, but it feels extremely overwhelming to really tackle. So yeah, I mean, it's something to put out there and definitely discuss. And as far as, as far as the knowledge that we have that we can share, I don't know.
No, totally. And I think it is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. It feels in so many ways, because of the way that our world works with fast fashion and fast toys and fast everything, that like it feels insurmountable in a lot of ways. I don't want to just throw my hands up and leave it there, but that's where I am right now, to be honest,
Yeah. But I think like, I mean, I have no answers because I feel the same way that you do.
Yeah.
But I think, even just talking about it and putting it out there, especially as people who have influence, like in the fiber community anyways, you have a lot of influence. Everyone knows who you are and everybody shops with you. So, the products you carry or how you source your materials does have influence. So don't underestimate that either, because you do have power to make change, and it's the type of thing too that I think it's not going to happen overnight and there's no easy answers, but just the fact that if you're thinking about it and being reflexive and maybe starting conversations with your supplier or other folks involved, like that's a starting point. Because if you think about the whole thing, it's so overwhelming.
It's too much.
And it's easy to get stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to think about the things that I personally have control over, like the one conversation I have with my supplier, and that in that one step, and then they can go do something, and then, we can make it real later. But
and in terms of cotton, like I'm seeing more and more recycled cotton on the market. So it's definitely something that's coming more and more, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, but
the problem
it's important.
Yeah. The problem with recycled is that the energy usage is not necessarily less than what,
than producing it in the first
conventional
place.
Is. Exactly. So it's not necessarily better, but I don't know. Yeah.
Oh no, I hear you on all of it. It's really challenging. And it's like you're one person, you're one small business, but I'm of the mind that it's our choices and intentions matter too. So I'm not saying that like I'm going to solve the world's problems, but I do want to think about my role in it, at least, and at least try to be just try to be as intentional and as purposeful as I can, and it's a process too. Like it's not like overnight or an easy answer, because there's a lot of fiber art out there right now. It's really amazing to see how this has exploded in the last few years. And I'm a part of that. So I want to think about
For
how
sure.
I can
Yeah. And you know what?
responsibly
I can't help but think like, I don't know if I'm going to express this or articulate it the way I want to, but it's like every issue has an opposite issue. Like if you're an animal rights activist and you think wool is wrong, then you're going to use vegan wool, which is acrylic, which is chemically made, which is then not good for their, so like everything. So it's like, and when, that's like one example of what I mean, but it's the same thing as being like, well, okay, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna make a choice to only, to not buy any H&M clothing because it's all that fast fashion, but then my furniture is from IKEA or whatever. I don't know. But I'm saying like in that way, like it's like you just have to try to make these small decisions in your life, but there's always going to be an opposite, like quote unquote ethically bad thing about it too, in a way. Yeah. So I think it's like we all just have to choose our moral or ethical priority, right?
Totally. And it's like, we're totally off on a tangent, but like a lot of stuff around like environmental and like ecological awareness right now is really focused on consumption and consumerism and how we consume, which is interesting because there's so much about that of like choices that we make as consumers. And obviously that's important, but the conversation maybe needs to be not necessarily about what we're buying, but just that we need to buy less,
Right.
And just consumption as
a thing. Yeah.
As a thing, is its own thing. Because you can make different choices about where you're going to buy things, but it's also just the volume of which we buy things. And it's I think about this stuff a lot. So, and again, I have no answers. It's just,
but it's something
something I'm thinking about a lot, and I want to think about my place in that cycle. And it's like, this is how I make a living right now, by selling things and making art. So I'm trying to be more intentional. Like an example of that is also that this year I made less, I just made less stuff. I made less pieces, and the pieces I made more of were often commissioned pieces. So they were pieces that were already bought by someone that had a home to go to. So I was just trying to be more intentional about the volume of stuff, because I could make stuff all day long and just be making things. That's nowhere to go. That's part of it too. So
I find it's hard. It's really hard. Because there's also a certain joy that you get, and just a piece of self, as like a sense of self that you get from making, right? Which then it's like, well, you can't take that away from yourself, you know what I mean? Or from other people too.
And I don't want to take that away from anyone.
No, I know. I'm not saying you specifically. I'm just saying, but that's the idea, is like, well, then what are the things we sacrifice in our lives to offset our existence here,
Yeah, and I'm such a firm believer too, and like one of the reasons I sell like weaving looms and weaving supplies is because, well, there was a demand for it, but because I want to encourage people's creativity, because I'm of the belief that if everybody had a creative practice, I think the world would be a better place. I think creativity brings a lot of joy and a lot of like peace and mindfulness and things that we need more of in the world. So I'm always trying to encourage people to tap into their creativity, and sometimes you need to facilitate that with having stuff for them to be creative with. Right. Yeah. Which is what you do, and you do it so well.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's true.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I feel like we could talk about it forever, and it's hard to find there's no easy answer to it all, but
no, there's not. I'm glad we talked about it though. I think it's good to like put it out there and talk about it.
There's also something, I guess we can talk about. I don't talk about it a lot on here, but I don't know. I guess I'm curious your perspective on it. And I find that my perspective on, I'll say copying, right? So like,
I knew this is what you
I wasn't even, the thing is, I never bring it up, but it's been weighing on me a lot lately because, okay, when I was strictly making and not supplying not supplying fibers, I definitely had a stronger opinion about it. But it was more like I really felt strongly about people straight up, not for not copying my giant pieces. Okay. Because that's like a super blatant like reproduction of work that I felt was like really unique to me.
Yes, of course.
However, I'm seeing a lot of conversations out there that are like, I don't know, I don't even know what to think of it. But now I've taken a step back from that, and I still feel that's like super fucking blatantly wrong. Okay, but as a supplier and as someone who wants to inspire people and also give everyone the freedom and the the ability to create and feel confident in their experimentation, I feel like there's overlap often that's going to happen, with people's work. Just as people learn, they're going to copy a little bit to learn how to do something, and then hopefully it develops later into something that's their own. I think that's all I'm going to say about it for now. Let me ask you and put it to you. What do you think?
In the hot seat.
Yeah.
This is a controversial topic.
It's very controversial.
That I see in our social media circles gets a lot of currency. I also don't really engage with this topic very much. I don't talk about it. I have thoughts and opinions about it, but they're definitely not the strongest ones out there. I feel like right now the fiber art community anyways has a lot of it's like visual currency on like Instagram, on Pinterest. So people are looking at your art all the time and are finding inspiration from it and are directly being inspired to the point where there's a lot of copying. So, and I'm not even speaking about my own work. When I do look, I just am constantly seeing work that is very directly referencing original work by other artists. This happens a lot. There's a couple people who are being copied way more than anyone else. They know who they are.
We don't have to name any names. I think everybody knows.
And part of me is like, I feel like it's sort of human nature. Like if someone has an idea that's really successful, other people want to get in on it. I don't know that folks are thinking too much about the ethics of what that actually means. I think especially in a more like maker artisan space versus like a fine art space, the topic of like directly plagiarizing somebody doesn't really come up a lot, which is interesting. And for sure, I think people are going to be inspired by others when they're learning or they're wanting to try new techniques. And especially when you're talking about things like fiber art, so like macrame and weaving, like we're all using the same techniques all the time, right? It's just finding your own spin on it. So I think that's totally great. I think it's great to look to artists that you're inspired by and that you admire, or you want to try techniques that they use or learn techniques. It's when people turn around and start selling work as their own that I think it becomes problematic.
I used to say, and I think I still really very much believe this, is that everyone is going to be inspired by someone else. And so if you feel you have to post it, because a lot of this just has to do with social media. If you're selling in your own hometown at your church market, go ahead. I don't know. Go ahead. But like, I feel like a lot of this is social media. So it's like, if you feel the need to post it, then I think it's really good etiquette to just say like, I was really inspired by this person, or even message them and say, I was really inspired by you. Do you mind if I, post it or whatever? But give credit in some way. Publicly give credit, and maybe it doesn't have to be like my assumption is that there's going to be that one piece that's really, 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 really similar to someone else's. Then you got to say like who inspired it, and then after that, veer, like develop, grow, make your work then your own, not just constantly following literally in like step by step in someone else's footsteps. Because I'm seeing that sometimes too.
I agree with you. And like, I've talked about this with some other folks, is that I spend a lot of time on Instagram, but I don't actually spend a lot of time like scrolling my feed. I spend time sort of on my own content. And I don't follow a lot of fiber artists. I follow people that I've been like friends with since the beginning that I actually have relationships with, but I don't follow a lot of fiber artists. And it's not that I don't want to be supportive to people in my community. It's that I don't want to be bombarded with visual imagery of other people's work, because even if you are like, you are taking that all in, whether or not you realize it, like it's going into your subconscious, it's leaking into your brain. So when you have an idea and you're like, oh, I have this great idea, the chances are it's actually referencing something you've already seen could be pretty high if you're spending a lot of time looking at other people's work. So I mean, I'm not perfect. I think we are all inspired by each other. And I think it's hard to have like completely original ideas all the time. But I definitely make it a point to not spend a lot of time on Instagram. And I look for inspiration elsewhere. Like we were talking about, like I have other sources of inspiration, and I try to make stuff that's me. I want to have my own voice as an artist. I don't want to make work like others, but there's definitely a proliferation of it right now. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. Part of me just thinks like it's going to happen no matter what you do.
Yeah. Like that's kind of the game we're in now. I mean, with digital and social media and Google and Pinterest and all those things, it's just in a way I kind of feel like it is what it is. But
because it is.
And I think, and the other thing is, I think that the person who is directly copying, I mean like really step by step, like literally making no changes to a piece, they know in their heart, they really know in their heart when they're posting it that it's not their work, you know? Yeah,
totally.
And my hope, and I really like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I really think that it's like a one-time deal, and then they start to figure it out, and they figure out their voice. And I don't know if that's true, but it's like the way I like to think of it, that it's like a one-time overlap, you know, in the process of learning. But I don't know.
And we're living in this age too, where it's like you're being measured by your level of visibility and productivity all the time, right? So if you're on Instagram, it's like, oh, I need something new to post every day. So there's this pressure to make things, and it's like, what if you just unplugged from everything and just made things alone in your studio for months at a time without, like
without needing the social media validation for it?
It would be so interesting to see, and like that's something I would like to do more of next year too, is give myself more time to work on pieces and have a slower process around some things, because I think really exciting things can like percolate and develop when you give yourself that time to really 100%. Engage with the process. So, but yeah, it's definitely not what's happening right now, but I would like to see more slow making.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Okay. We've been talking for like an hour and a half. So I'm going to just end on one thing, one question. What is something completely non-art or fiber? Oh, shoot. You know what? I also wanted to talk about, if you were willing, your fibromyalgia. This is like, I didn't realize. Yeah. I didn't realize that, you were suffering with this. And as a maker, that's like a really big thing to have to deal with. What is it like for you, and when did it come about, and when did it start? And
I'll talk about it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Well, I've had symptoms for about 12 years now. So if anybody doesn't know, fibromyalgia is a condition. They don't really know what causes it. It's not autoimmune. It's neurological, but it mimics a lot of autoimmune disorders. So I have chronic pain. I have pain in my body all the time. I have flare-ups where it gets much worse. And I have days where I'm really functional, but I always have a baseline of pain all the time. I also get tired really easily. So sometimes, just doing one outing in a day will totally wipe me out. I won't have energy to do a lot of things in a day. So this is part of why I compartmentalize my life, and my time is managed so precisely. I've kind of had to learn to do this. And So yeah, it's pain, fatigue. I have some like cognitive issues. I have brain fog. It makes me kind of slow. I have a hard time speaking or formulating thoughts on certain days. At this point, I manage it really well, mostly with like lifestyle and diet. I do some alternative therapies too. But yeah, it's not a nice thing to live with.
No, I know. I would think not, especially as someone who's constantly, I mean, you really need to be like using your body all the time too.
Yeah, it's funny because I started doing this because, like I said, I couldn't really work a full-time job anymore. I wasn't able to. So starting this business for me was a means to support myself. So I love what I do. I love running my business, and I actually probably work harder now doing this than any other job I've had, but I work for myself, which is better for me. I control my schedule. I control my workload. If I need to rest during the day, I can. I work from home. It also gives me a lot more flexibility with like my parenting and with my kids, which is really important to me. But yeah, like this is not a hobby for me. This is fully how I support myself financially. So it's been like it's a hard thing to live with, but it's also really forced me to make a lot of changes in my life for the better. Because I really had to slow down and take care of myself in a lot of ways that I wasn't before. Something else I don't talk about a lot, but I'll mention here is I've been sober for 5 years too. So that was a big piece of it.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. So that's like another thing. And like having my kids really like, you know, I want to be my best for them. So I really had to just sort of slow down, learn how to take care of myself. So weaving and having a studio art practice at home has been amazing. But something that's kind of caught up to me this year is how hard it is on my body, because I actually didn't really realize, I think, how much it was impacting my physical body. So this year I've been taking some steps to sort of manage that. So I found this amazing athletic massage therapist, and she's taking really good care of me. And I have an amazing osteopath. So I have a couple of really great like bodywork folks that work with me and help. But yeah, I have to spend a lot of time just like cooking and resting.
Yeah.
I get like 8 hours of sleep a night without fail. I'm very.
Oh, that's so good. That's
I
so important. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you find to be like the alternative therapies, like the most effective and useful for you?
Well, like accessing practitioners like that, like a massage therapist, an osteopath. I've been trying to go to the gym regularly too, which makes a huge impact on how I feel. And for me, a lot of it is like what I eat. So I have to really be mindful of the type of food.
I was going to say, are you gluten-free?
I need to be gluten-free. I need to be sugar-free. I need to be dairy-free. So I have a lot of restrictions around things that I do eat sometimes, but I don't feel good when I eat them. Yeah. And I really see the direct impact that it has on how I feel. So
it does sound so similar to autoimmune. I didn't realize it was neurological. It sounds like celiac and like those kinds of things. My sister is like gluten intolerant, and ever since she quit gluten, she used to be achy all the time. And brain fog.
It can have a very similar impact.
Yeah. And she said that like ever since she went gluten for like 5 years ago, and her body just feels better in general. But
yeah, I say neurological because there's no physiological reason for the pain that you experience, but it's all
connected. It's all connected.
You have to have a very holistic approach to your health when you have an illness like this. But I'm super happy. I don't talk about it all the time, but I'm super open to talking about it. And whenever I do talk about it in like public space, especially on my Instagram account, I always get lots of messages from folks who also have chronic illness. I mean, like,
a lot of people out
I'm
there.
super happy to talk about it. And, you know, I identify as somebody who has a disability, but I come across as a very able-bodied person. I understand that behind the scenes, it's not always the case for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I can't, this is, I'm so going to go off on a tangent, but I so think so much of it is the way that we are farming. I'm serious, because I just heard this podcast recently on Rob Bell's podcast. Do you ever listen to Rob Bell? He's like a
No.
spiritual, he's sort of like a spiritual leader or whatever, but he has interviewed this guy who he's basically like devoted his life to organic farming research, and like basically the plow and obviously Roundup and Monsanto have completely, it's messed up our food production. And I think we know it. We all know this kind of on a basic level, but the fact that the plow goes down and disrupts the whole, like, whatever the system that's under the soil has completely affected the nutritional value of our food. So, and then like the way we digest our own gut biomes and all that, because they're supposed to mirror each other. Like what's in the soil and what is in our body are supposed to sort of work in harmony, and it's all fucked right now. Anyway, that was my weird tangent, but it's
not weird, it's totally true, and I'm totally into talking about this stuff. I don't know how much.
I know, and you have to I know you have to pick up your kid in a second, but I'll mention briefly also that this podcast was born out of my sort of sobriety journey. So congrats to you. I'm not serious. Yeah, I'm on and off, so I'll go like months without drinking, and then I'll go and then I'll like fall back in and then like do like a month where it's like it creeps in and there's like a daily glass of wine, and then right now I'm on 3 months no drinks. So yeah, working on it. Thanks.
That's a whole thing, and it's something I don't talk about. I don't
really either. This is my first time saying it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that's very meaningful. Thank you for sharing that with me, because it's a hard thing to talk about, and it's a hard thing to be out about, because I think it's very taboo and it's a little stigmatizing to be sober.
But it's also, I think it's less so now, but maybe it's because I am so into the resources that have been like the modern day resources of sobriety, and that it's also kind of becoming cool. I think I got
sober, was like surrounding myself with podcasts and books.
Did you listen to the Home?
I never went to meetings. I love Home was my like gateway.
Yes.
Yeah, like Holly and Laura.
Yes.
Shout out.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're great. So, they both have books coming out this year too, eh?
Yeah. I pre-ordered Laura's, but
amazing. Yeah.
Actually, Home Podcast is where I first was introduced to Rob Bell, who I was just mentioning, the spiritual leader guy, because anyway, so then it brought me down this whole path of like, you know, great people, good information, healthy living. And it's interesting because for me it was like I never thought my drinking was like it's never been super problematic. It's just that it creeps in and becomes a daily habit, and I was like, wait, this is weird. And then when I wanted to stop doing that, I was like, wait, why is this hard? Why is it hard to not have wine every night? This is weird. And then I was like, oh shit, I kind of have a problem, you know? And then it was like, and then I really opened my eyes to a whole lot of stuff you have to unearth when you quit drinking. But,
well, that's it. And I think, the reasons people drink and like our whole model for understanding like quote unquote, like alcoholism, I don't really like that word, but, it comes from a particular model that is a bit outdated and isn't reflective of people's current realities or why people drink or why they use. Yeah. So,
our whole society
cool
is like, like the mom drinking thing is like, I mean, it's so pervasive. Like
I have a lot.
Mommy juice. Podcast. I need my mommy juice. It's like, oh shit. It's so ingrained and indoctrinated. So. Anyway, I'm sure we can talk about this offline a lot more.
That's like a whole other thing. But that's so cool, and congrats to you. And I have
you too. It was 5 years. That's amazing.
I have absolutely no regrets.
Yeah,
and I'm so much happier without it. Really, like it's I've had to like change a lot of things in my life, but for the better. Like it's just made me a better person, and I'm so much more comfortable in my own skin.
Don't you sleep way better now?
Oh, everything.
My sleep was so bad. And I think that's actually my biggest catalyst for my needing to stop drinking is like I couldn't sleep anymore, like at all.
Yeah. Sleep, anxiety, anxiety.
It makes your anxiety so much worse. And everyone thinks like, oh, just have a glass of wine, you're going to be better. That shit makes it so much worse.
Yeah. It's like
that is not your fix.
Like fuel on the fire. It's not good. Yeah. Totally.
I love that girl. She's amazing. I was like I was supporting her Patreon and everything for a while, but anyway.
That's awesome.
Jen, it was such a pleasure to talk to you. I'm going to let you go because you're going to need to pick up your kid. But yeah, just thank you so much.
20 minutes. I'm
okay. Thank you so much. Tell people where they can find you. Etsy on Nova Mercury.
You can find me at Etsy, Nova Mercury, or on my Instagram page, which is also Nova Mercury.
And probably within the next 2 weeks, novamercury.com.
I'm going to have a website so soon with Cindy as my accountability buddy who's going to...
I am seriously going to check in on you, girl. This is not okay.
No, I need it. Coming soon.
Unacceptable. Yeah.
But seriously, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Here.
And you're so awesome in all the ways. And I'm really glad that we got to chat. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Of course. Anytime.
I'm here.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye, buddy. Bye.
Don't go. Okay. Oh my God. I seriously wish we were closer so we could just freaking meet up for coffee or whatever.
Oh, I know.
Hang out with our kids. I didn't realize we had this much in common, really.
I have so many friends like this where I know them on Instagram and I'm like, why do we not live in the same area?
I know.
All these long distance friends. Well, you're not too far.
I know, it's true. That's true.
Road trip.
I know. And actually, I've never been to Montreal and I really, really would like to visit. I heard it's so beautiful.
Oh, it's such a great city.
Yeah.
How old are your kiddos? They're young too.
6 and 7 now.
Oh.
6 and 7.5. Yeah, they're getting big.
Yeah, you should come. There's always lots of festivals and stuff happening here too. So if you ever came at a time when there's stuff going on in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city.
No, we'd love
Amazing.
to. I know. My husband and I are due for a trip.
Come with your husband.
Exactly. I was going to say without kids.
It's very romantic. You could do lots of nice stuff. We have amazing everything. I really think it's one of the best cities in the world.
Yeah.
It's like a destination. I'm a bit spoiled living here, but.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to be there for a good long time?
I think so. We're pretty settled here. We have no family here, which is the only hard part. Brian's family is all in Toronto, and sometimes we think about moving there, but the vibe in Toronto is just so different.
It's different, yeah. I went there a bunch as a kid. I went to Toronto a bunch as a kid, but just to visit because I'm from Michigan. So we would always drive over, when we had family visiting or whatever.
Toronto's great. It's just it's much more like a metropolitan, big, busy city. Mm-hmm. It's much bigger too. Montreal is because of the French, it's sort of, we don't have as big of a population because you have to speak French to live here. Right. So it limits who lives here. So, and it just has this kind of super slacker, laid back, artist cultural mindset. Cool. So the pace of life here is kind of slower than anywhere else.
Yeah. Did you know French already? I
did. And then I didn't speak it a lot for a few years, in my 20s. And then when I moved here, because I was working retail a lot, I was speaking it all day, every day. So I just, so I speak French fluently, which you pretty much need awesome. To. It's Brian doesn't speak French so great, which is funny because he's a Montrealer. Really? He was born and raised here, but in the
really?
West
How is that possible? That he didn't learn it.
Anglophone communities where people just don't speak French at all.
Oh,
so
wow.
He speaks it, but not great. But for him, his work he has limited options, but he has a really great job that he loves. So he's got his niche.
Yeah. Is he sober as well? I would assume.
Is he sober?
Yeah. In the music industry, is that impossible?
He's not sober, but he's not a drinker.
Yeah. Same with my husband.
He doesn't drink at all. And then when he does drink, he'll have a beer and has no interest in drinking more than that. I really
I don't know who people, I wish that were me. I would so love if I could just enjoy one and not have to have 4.
Well, I don't have an off switch.
I don't either. That's exactly the problem.
Yeah. And I grew up in a family of people who don't have off switches.
Really?
And my whole extended family drinks. So it's really something I was around a lot as a kid. It was very normalized for me, I was just always around alcohol.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that my kids are growing up not being around it at all.
Yeah.
Which I really like. I like that they don't, it's not in our house. They don't see it. Brian's family doesn't drink at all. No one in his family drinks. They're not drinkers.
Wow.
So it's just like my parents. And even then, since I stopped, I think my mom got a little like, maybe I should cut back. So she's like more careful. But my dad is a very heavy drinker and has like a problematic relationship to alcohol, which I had for a really long time.
Yeah.
But
I know. I did too, and I didn't realize it because I thought it was kind of normal because everybody here drinks a lot. But then, like, it was like after having kids and stuff, I would like check in with friends. I'm like, yeah, I'm having it, wine every day. And they're like, what? Every day? I'm like, yeah, aren't you? Like, I totally thought it was normal. And then they're like, no, maybe like, Friday night. I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm having like 3 glasses of wine a night, and then we'll turn into 4. And it will sometimes turn into 5, and then like,
that was me too, for sure.
Especially
it was like wine. As soon as I started cooking dinner, it was like 9 o'clock.
It's like those triggers
like all night till I went to bed every night.
Yep, same. And it got worse when I had kids, because then I was like, I deserve it. I deserve it. It's 5 o'clock. Like I've had this whole day with them.
Don't you find it's also like, because when you're younger, you're out, you're like going to bars, you're partying, you're social. So drinking is like super normalized. But then when it's like you become a parent, you're kind of trapped in your house all the time. You're not going out, and then you're like drinking by yourself. And you're like, no, my
that was me totally. And this lifestyle too for both of us. Like it was like mine got worse when I moved to the country and literally was not seeing anyone. Yeah, and I was just like every night,
Yeah. No, for sure. And it's a hard thing to like, it felt so scary to let go of, because it was, for me, it was my coping mechanism. So a big part for me too is when I stopped drinking, because I didn't want to go to meetings, I surrounded myself with all this like online support. So like podcasts, audiobooks, but I went to therapy. I started seeing a therapist, and I like talked about it in that space. And it was like good, because I've just unpacked so much.
Yeah. I thought about going. I researched, because I was like, what is all this? Why am I like, why it literally opens a whole can of worms that you're like I really thought I didn't think it was a coping mechanism. I just thought it was normal. Yeah. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I have this whole host of things that I need to deal with. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, if you can swing therapy, and find a therapist that you like, I can't recommend it enough. I think everyone should be in therapy if they can. It's expensive and hard to do, but it's so good to just have a space that's like, you can be so self-absorbed and you just talk about yourself for an hour, and you can just talk about all your own problems, and you can be so candid about everything. There just aren't a lot of contexts in life where you get to do that. And it's
true. Like completely unfiltered, because you filter. I mean, I think we all filter every conversation, even with best friends. It's like, you're not going to share all the shit,
No, and if you can really just like let it out with a therapist and like have that space, I think especially as parents, when you spend so much of your time like taking care of other people, it's hard to find time to like really take care of yourself and to be like, need to do this. But I really wish you like all the best.
Thank you.
In your journey. And if you ever need like a buddy to talk to about it, I'm there for you, because it's hard.
It's really hard.
All my friends drink. So
mine too.
Yeah.
I feel okay. Like when I'm in my routine, I'm fine. Like these last 3 months have been super easy, like really fine. But then I worry a little about Christmas. Like my family doesn't drink that much either, though. It's just, I feel like I have to travel with them, which feels stressful. And I'm like, oh shit, we're going to Vegas for Christmas. I'm like, I'm going to want like a drink. But for me, it's like, I can't just have one. And then if I have 3, I'm okay with 3, actually. 3 is okay. Yeah. But then I can't sleep. And then I've ruined, and then I'm super depressed the next day. Because not sleeping sucks. And like it puts you in a state of mind that is not healthy anyway. Plus, it puts me in a really bad place. But whatever. I'll figure it out.
Do you think you could go and not drink?
I hope. That's what I'm hoping. I'm sorry, I have to pee so bad right now. But
where would you go? Okay. I have to go pick up my kid anyway.
Okay, yeah, I know. It was such a pleasure, Jen. Thank you so much.
It was so good talking to you. It really was.
You too.
We'll talk
I know.
And I'll follow up with you about the Vegas thing. I'm going to do my website.
Okay. Do it.
You take care, Susie.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
Bye. Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on niromastudio.com/The Fiber Artist Podcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.